All right, welcome in to another edition of Carps Corner. This one, a little bit of spring ball, and obviously got some pro day here that was on Wednesday, March 22nd. So Tuesday practice, pro day Wednesday, another practice Thursday, and they're gonna have a big scrimmage on Saturday to kind of get it rolling a little bit. So a lot of things going on right now for the Buckeyes. Some very exciting stuff as they're integrating some young players, and there's some of the old guys, obviously the former players now. We're working out on pro day. So we want to kind of get into some of the coaches' conversations, some of the things that they ultimately said about what was going on with practice. Ryan Day spoke to the media, talking a lot about the quarterbacks, talking about the offensive line, developing a plan for spring. And some of the things that are ultimately going on. So we're going to start off with that. We're going to dive right in because there's a lot of stuff obviously going on. And even got some video of pro day, which I'll throw in here of the CJ and some of the wideouts. So some good stuff to ultimately see how that all looks here, and and I'll let you know how impressive some of the guys ultimately were. But a pretty darn solid day for everybody with Ohio State. Most of the guys went out and performed really, really well. I wouldn't say anyone had like a bad day. Some guys maybe just had a little better day than others ultimately had. So pretty solid stuff right there that we're talking about. So good stuff by Ohio State and everything ultimately that's going on. I want to start off with this. Start off with some of the spring ball news and some of the sound with Ryan Day. We'll start off with what everybody wants to hear and everybody wants to talk about. Ultimately, the quarterbacks, the QBs, what they're doing. So we've got some sound from Ryan here talking about the QB's earning respect, both working well and doing some things right here.
I think they are fitting in well. When you come to Ohio State, you don't just jump into that locker room and, think that you're going to get the respect of the teammates just because you walk into the locker room. You have to earn it. I think both of them have done that through, winter workouts, mat drills, and now into the third day of practice. They've worked. I think that anytime you're in that type of situation, you have to kind of work your way into it. You kind of, you're seen before you're heard.
You hear him talking about Devin Brown, Kyle McCord, and just how they're earning the respect, how they're working hard of their teammates. And that's a big thing, because it's not just your play on the field. It's how you carry yourself. It's your composure. All of those things are ultimately wrapped up into it if you're going to be the starting quarterback. And now we got, Sound Ryan talking about their intelligence and ultimately like their football IQ and ultimately what they're doing there.
No, I think that they're starting to take shape. Yeah, I think that they're doing a good job. I think the one thing that I can appreciate about both of them is their work ethic, their intelligence level, and it's been fun to get out there and see them now take the reps with the ones. Because when you're taking the reps with the twos and the threes, it's a little bit different, especially in season. But now they're getting thrushed up there and pushed up there, and we'll see as we continue to go. We haven't even put third down in yet. We haven't put any of that stuff in, so we'll see. But so far, I kind of like their mentality, and I think that the team, believes in them, and I think that's important as well.
And some big stuff there. As you hear, Ryan talk about, their intelligence and the reps with the ones and how important that is. Because like when you're getting reps from the twos and the threes and it's in season, like you just don't get that feel for playing with the guys, and like you're not the dude, and so you're trying and you're doing your best out there, but it's just a little bit of a different situation now that they're with the dudes and they're rotating through there. There's a lot of things going on. Keeping it simple for them, making sure that they understand what they're doing. So you want to be able to see how they play early on, and then as they start putting in some third down, some special situations, some red zone, then you really get to see everything that's going on. Now the guys that will be protecting them, this is something that's interesting. Obviously Donovan Jones and Paris Johnson aren't going to be there anymore, so they've got to find guys to protect these dudes up front. Luke Whippler gone as well, and so this is kind of how the young tackles are looking, especially when you're transferring in, maybe leveling up a little bit, how that progress has ultimately been made.
So far I've been impressed with the way Carson's come out and competed early on. Vic is learning the offense. I think he would tell you that Practicing every day at Ohio State is something that he's adjusting to, but has ability, has athleticism, got a great attitude. So I think we'll see the best football out of him as we get closer to the middle of spring practice. But so far, I've been pretty pleased with what's going on at center.
And so you hear it. I mean, being a starter at Ohio State on the offensive line, there's work to do there. And he likes what they're seeing on the outside. But obviously, you lose two guys that may end up both being, first and second round draft pick, first and a third. Like, they're really good. They're big. They're physical. They could move. They could bend. They're tough. They're good in the run, good in the pass. So replacing those guys going to be very difficult. And they're going against some pretty good guys in JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. They've been working them out there pretty good. And so, especially some of the young DNs as well. So there's a lot of talent that they're going against. So they're getting exposed to a lot early on, which is really, really good. Now Ryan wants to talk a little bit about his plans for the spring, and just, you got different plans for different guys.
One thing about spring practice, the more you think about it, and with COVID and everything that's gone on the last couple of years, you have guys who've been in the program for 4 years, for 5 years. Then you have guys who should be finishing up their senior year of high school. So you have different variety of experiences and age groups. So trying to figure out what's right for each guy is where, this time of year you got to do a great job of. Some guys have played a bunch of football. They've had thousands of snaps in games. Other guys have never done it before. So what we want to do is get a lot of those younger guys a bunch of game reps, see who can tackle, see who's going to make plays, give them an opportunity to go put it on the field. So we'll be very basic in what we're doing schematically, but just allow them to go play, and then grade the film and see where we're at.
So this is important. This is one of the things Ryan has done a good job and understood. And a lot of that comes into talking with Mickey Marotti, the strength coach, and just working to try to figure out what is best for each guy. Because you've got a lot of guys who've played a lot of reps, who are pretty well polished and understand a lot of what's going on in the offense. Now, they can always get better, and you want them to develop rapport with their teammates, but you also want to make sure you're getting young guys reps who haven't played as much. So you got some guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously. He doesn't need a ton of reps. He can get a lot in individual and will continue to work and hone his skills, develop a rapport with some of the quarterbacks, but you want to also get those young guys in there as well and make sure they're getting a lot of reps. Tommy Eichenberg, he's not practicing. He's got a shoulder issue. Like, that's not the end of the world, with what's going on. And some of the running backs, like, these guys have played a lot of football. Cade Stover still played a lot of football, but still getting better, still working at tight end. And so just understanding how many reps these guys have had in their career, what they need to do to get better. And is that something you can do in individual, or is it something that needs to be done in team? And they need to develop kind of a feel for the team and everything that's going on, and how to play that position at the college level. So there's different ways to develop different guys. And that's some of the stuff that they ultimately have to work on and get through there. So Ryan, they're developing different game plans for everyone with, as far as what they've done and how much they need to improve. So that's very important to develop those little idiosyncratic game plans for each guy as you attack spring, and what they ultimately are going to do. And then the last one I've got here, just a real short clip about what the scrimmage is potentially going to look like on Saturday. I think people are going to get excited because it sounds like they might go live.
We're going to talk about it as a staff in terms of exactly how we're going to do it. We'll see how we come out of Thursday. That's a big part of it too, is the injuries and how many guys we have at what positions. We'll try to figure out how many reps we want to get each guy, but we want to tackle to the ground and with certain guys.
So you always want to make sure that you're healthy and you're not doing anything to cause irreparable harm to your team. So you don't want to go in and say we're going to do this, and then we get a bunch of guys nicked up on Thursday, and so you may only have one or two guys at a specific position, and they get gassed, and they even get hurt on Saturday. So you want to make sure that you're healthy enough to do it. But I'm sure they're going to pick some guys that they can hit, maybe even let the young quarterbacks get hit. Who knows? Some of the younger running backs, the receivers, things like that. And you have to work on tackling at some point. So you want to see these guys ultimately tackle to the ground. And that's key, because tackling is essential on defense. Because unless you're going to force an incompletion every time or have guys run out of bounds, you have to find a way to get dudes to the ground. Tackling was much improved last year, but there's still a ways to go. And so getting some of those young guys, the linebackers, the Gabe Powers, the CJ Hicks, Reed Carricos, heck, even Cody Simon, getting some of those guys out there and getting them some more work and some more reps, on those second level tackles. Like that's going to be big. And so that'll be a great opportunity for them, hopefully, to be able to do that on Saturday. Excited. I should be able to hopefully get to that practice, and we'll see ultimately what happens. What we're going to throw up next is pretty exciting. Got a couple videos. Got 2 videos of Marvin catching balls from CJ and 1 from Jaden Ballard. Ballard, people were talking about a lot as far as pro scouts. And we'll get into some of the other guys, but Ballard turned some heads because, like, who's this guy? He caught every ball and he was showing off that elite speed, and watching his acceleration is ridiculous. So we're going to throw this up here. This is the first one of Jaden Ballard. You can see him, running his routes. Look at the fluidity. Look at the speed. Even better on deep balls, but does a good job bringing it in. Now we're going to see another one of Marvin. Similar route, working some of these, in cuts and out cuts, these mid-level route breakers, and seeing what they can do. So we can see Marvin doing the same thing. Look at the fluidity coming across the field. CJ throws a good ball to him. Marvin catches it. We've seen that a million times. Now, last, we're going to see one here from Marvin coming at me, the film guy, over on the side. And this is why you always have to be careful on a sideline with everything that's going on. Now, I did not fall. I did not get hit. And I wanted to make sure I completed the shot. Here's Marvin. We can watch him now running this out route. And look at him catch the ball. And, right at yours truly right here. And almost get one in the face. I'm talking to some scouts. I wouldn't say horsing around, but I'm maybe making more concerned about the shot and not really locked in on myself potentially getting hit. So some good stuff there. Now we'll start getting into all the different guys. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who everybody wanted to see. How did he run? We were talking about running the 40. What did he ultimately do? Well, he looked okay in the 40. I think he ran what everybody expected him to. A lot of guys that talk scouts I talked to, high 4.4s, 4.98 or 4.48, 4.49. Low 4.5s, 4.45, 4.4 or 4.52, 4.51. And so somewhere in that range. That's about what he is. He's about a 4.5 guy. But what they were really impressed with is his wiggle, his ability to move. And you see him running routes, man. Very fluid and also very explosive going back and forth. And his ability to bend and turn his hips and turn his body. Like, that's what they were really impressed with. And guys, they had him run some routes outside, worked in the slot as well. But people saw, like, hey, I think he can be a really good number 2 receiver, and he's outside. He's a dynamite guy when you move him in. And so it just depends, as a team on, kind of what you want. If you need guys that can make plays and catch balls, like, he's your dude. If you're a team that's like, hey, we need a deep threat receiver for the Cleveland Browns, and he's probably not yours. But that's the way that it ultimately works, is kind of what you need. But if you need a guy like him, if you need a receiver that can go outside and inside and be someone that catches everything, runs really great routes, and is going to get open and is a physical guy after the catch, then he checks that box. And I think he can be a really good player in the NFL doing that. And like I said, thought JSN did a good job. Jackson Smith and Jigba, elite kid, did a good job. Go some of the offensive linemen here. Paris Johnson. Some people said he was the big winner of the day. You saw as much as he could win. Like, offensive linemen and quarterbacks, it's tough to really see what they can do. But you can watch him bend his hips. He had good movement. He had really good power pop in the bag. And his footwork was really exceptional. And so that's what you see. You can see him on the film. He still has room to grow, but he has all of those tools, and he's a great guy. Luke Whippler moved well, looked good inside. I mean, he's not the athlete, obviously, that Paris is, but did a good job and handled himself to expectations of what people thought he ultimately would be. Mitch Rossi looked pretty good. I mean, maybe isn't the most elite athlete, but moved well in space, caught the ball well. I thought looked pretty darn good. Some of the guys defensively, Tanner McAllister, looking at the DBs, I thought Tanner McAllister looked like he was in great shape. Dude's really put together well physically. Not the biggest dude in the world, but his footwork was great. Looked very fluid in and out of his breaks. I didn't get a time on how he was able to run, but I thought he looked good. And I think some people were pretty impressed with what they saw from him. Cam Brown, a little bit disappointing in the 40. Didn't really run as fast as he thought. People thought he'd be in the 4.3s, mid 4.5s. So not there. I mean, I don't know if that Achilles injury from a couple years back is still, maybe just took some of that elite top end speed off of him, because he is a guy that used to be able to really roll, looked pretty good in the drills, moved, had good size to him. Um, I think people were pretty impressed with him, his personality, and demeanor. But if he was hoping to come out there, blow the doors off and run an elite 40, which I think would have got some attention, prove to people, like, put some of the injuries behind him. I don't know if he was quite there yet with that. And so he was working on it. Like I said, hit the mid 4.5s. And then, Zach Harrison, I thought, moved pretty well, jumped pretty good. He's a really good athlete. The big thing for him was bend, and I thought he bent pretty well, given his size and just kind of his genetic makeup. I mean, he's not going to ever be confused with as fluid as Jackson Smith and Jigba, or being able to bend the edge like to DeMarcus Ware, but he's got good size. He has good power. And I thought that he looked like he was moving really well and showed some really good footwork. And so, like, you can only utilize what God gave you. And I thought he did a great job that day. And he looked to really be good and building on what I think was really a good senior season for him. And so I think Zach Harrison, throughout this process, from last year at the end of the season till now, really made himself a much, much better football player, much more appealing to the NFL. And it showed during his college season as well. Now, CJ, I think pro days for quarterbacks are the most overrated thing. If you look bad, that's really terrible. But if you look good, I don't know what you're really proving to me. I expect CJ to come out there and look good. The dude can throw the ball, and people were impressed. Like, look at, the flexibility, the movement with his arm. Look how he throws the football. Did a really good job putting it out there for guys. I thought was really accurate, showed good command, running everything. He was in charge. They gave him plays, routes they wanted to see. He showed them all and directed traffic. But he's an elite thrower of the football. For him, it's like, hey, was he in good shape? Check the box. Was he consistent? Yes. How'd the ball come off his hand? He throws the ball as well as anybody I've ever seen, as far as just touch and release and all those things. The whole Carolina contingent was up there watching him. I'm sure they're going tomorrow to Alabama to check out Bryce, but they were all up there. And you're not really going to help yourself on pro day, but you definitely can hurt yourself. And CJ, I thought, did as well as you possibly could have. Moving around, showed his athleticism. He's fluid. He's not the most twitchy guy in the world, but that you can see that when he throws, because he's got a very smooth throwing motion as well. Just a note on that, as I'm talking to some of the scouts, what is Bryce Young really? I mean, like, he's barely 5'10", and he plays at a $180, $185. And, but he's an explosive athlete, great human being, really good thrower of the football, anticipates, big competitor, has everything else. And so that's going to be the choice to me between CJ and Bryce, what you're looking for in the quarterback. And it's really just kind of a personal preference. And I can't tell you that. Everybody has a different idea of what they ultimately want at that position. And then Anthony Richardson, I talked to people about him, like, the Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson comparisons, like, those aren't there. I mean, those guys carried average football teams to great seasons, winning Heisman trophies. I mean, they were elite players. And, Anthony Richardson wasn't that. And he's got elite traits, but it wasn't necessarily evident on the football field on a week in and week out basis. And that's one of the problems. And so I just want to kind of pick guys' brains when they were seeing these guys and what they've seen on film, if it's different than what I saw. And some scouts and front office guys that I really know and trust that were there. Some questionable stuff here. Donovan Jones didn't participate. Big Thanos looked good. He had a great combine. I guess he wanted to rest on that. I thought doing the position drills for him could only help him, showing that he can bend. He was going to be in a comfortable environment and be in a good spot. And then, Ronnie Hickman, still, I guess, has a groin that he tweaked at the Senior Bowl. At some point, I mean, you got to go and you've got to prepare. And so he'll have his own, pro day before the draft. But at some point, like, he's got to be able to go. And there were so many guys there today. There was a ton of head coaches, a ton of GMs. There was as many scouts as I'd ever seen, to tell you the truth. And they've opened it up a lot more. Urban opened it more than Tress. Ryan wants to get the media in there, make sure, hey, you're publicizing this, and it's good for recruiting, and it's good for the team, it's good for the culture, the program, to let people be able to see it. And so your parents, can come in there, some media, and you get a lot of scouts. But it was packed. It was a packed house that day. And before we get out of here, I want to leave you with this. So you had Marvin, Cade, Xavier, and Ballard all running routes, and guys were as impressed as them as anybody. People were really impressed with Cade Stover, how well he moved. Like, wait, this guy played defense. What else did he do? Like, well, yeah, they were trying to play him at DN, and then there was a tight end after linebacker, and then moved him linebacker in the spring. I go, he really played tight end last year during camp, and that's how good he was. Put the film on, and so they were really pumped about his potential upside. Um, Marvin, I mean, people are like, he won the day. I mean, whatever that means. He was great. Xavier Johnson, I thought, did a heck of a job. You know, he was playing so hard, running routes. People were really impressed with his athleticism, how, just much of a grinder he was. And then obviously Ballard's speed. But the thing with a lot of those guys, especially Xavier, he goes so hard. He was taking 1,000,000 reps from running back to slot to outside, showing everything he could off. And those guys had practice yesterday, and they practiced the day before. And so they had that. I was told they're going to chill those guys out a little tomorrow because they got a full day's work today. So the young guys, I'm sure at the skill positions, are going to get a ton of reps. But that was really big for those guys. It just puts an image in the scouts' mind of like, hey, man, when you see him on film and then you're like, I saw him in person. Man, that guy looked really good. Or Ballard's like, man, that guy looked really fast. And now I see him getting behind guys like this dude can scoot. Or Xavier, you see how tough, like you see the way he works and all those things. It's positive to put out a good performance like that. And those guys all did it. So very, very impressed. Like I said, it was a packed house. It was as good a pro day as I've ever been to. And heck, I've been to about all of them for the last 20 years. So great job. Really excited for that. I mean, guys, I thought handled themselves very, very well and very, very impressive. So having an update here, maybe on Friday after practice, but definitely coming out of this weekend after the scrimmage, we'll have some stuff for you, some updates. But very exciting stuff, and look forward to continue to update you throughout the spring, through the summer, and then as we get back into camp, it will be here before you know it. Please like, subscribe, comment. Any questions you have, fire away as we continue to kind of do this dance here for the next couple of weeks and all the way through the draft. So go Bucks, enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon.